Hello, my name is Chris, and I am an Ultimate player on the Toronto Rush. I spoke recently at McMaster University to talk about my experience with mindfulness and how it helped me level up my overall game when it came to the mental part of playing Ultimate at a higher and higher level. I firmly believe that the mental side of the game is extremely important, and I think that mindfulness is one way that you can try to get started and see how it impacts your game regardless of what level you're at. This is a recording of that session, and I hope it can be helpful for you and your teams in your journey. And if you find this valuable at all, or any of my other videos, please leave a comment and subscribe. I read them all and will respond as well. Peace. Nice to meet everybody. My name is Chris. Usually on Ulti Fields, people just call me C-Chan, so feel free to do so. I'm going to go over quickly about my thoughts on the mental side of the game. The really short story of it was like everyone here, when I first joined McMaster, mental game was one aspect that I never really experienced before. My only experience beforehand was I played some Club Ultimate back in Vancouver and also my high school team. But on that high school team, I had one major coach figure, and he did give me a lot of solid skills. He was an amazing player, but he also was quite harsh. So I think I was at a position during McMaster, during tournaments, I distinctly remember, like, you know, I'd go on the field, I'd be handling, I'd be catching, whatever, and I miss throw, like whether it's the wind or the weather or whatever, and I turf a throw, and I fuck it up, and that caused me a downward spiral. Like one mistake would make me get in my own head, and then me being in my own head would just make me make even more mistakes. So that was kind of the starting point for where I was at. And what transitioned me to, I think, being a lot more confident with mental game is something that I just want to give a brief overview of mindfulness, which is what I learned. I sent Albert all the resources, books, stuff that I used. Essentially, the book that I used I read it in a weekend. The author, George Mumford, was one of the people that the coach of Chicago Bulls, Phil Jackson, brought in during their second three-peat with Michael Jordan. And he was the one that taught them this kind of mindfulness practice for sport, and they ran it during practices. That was the main thing that helped transform kind of my understanding of it and implementing the practice based on some of the things that I learned from Vancouver and watching what Furious George does, the club team from there, and things like that. But yeah, essentially, we'll go over kind of just what it is very quickly. We'll go into the practice, and then we'll talk about boxing, like just an active kind of mental game practice too. So again, bear with me for like maybe 5 minutes, and then we'll get right into playing. I wanted to do this now before the active warm-up, so we're not just chilling. Mindfulness, essentially, to boil it down, is just focusing on the present moment. So what the active practice will be is I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to your breath while you're breathing in and out. And again, there's the parasympathetic effect of the slow, deep breaths. So that is one aspect, but the focus thing is really the main aspect. When I spiraled, what I didn't realize was I had no control over where my thoughts went, right? So the way that we can get better at that, or the way that you practice mindfulness or being an effective player from a mental aspect, is being able to control or notice when your thoughts go out of whack. So the way we do that is actively practice it outside of the game situation, so that when we're in game, it's more likely that it just happens automatically, right? So again, focusing attention on the present moment. That's what we're actually practicing. That is what mindfulness is. So the actual practice, what we'll get into is, I always like to start it with 3 deep breaths, and then we'll close our eyes, but not yet. My understanding is Maroon wants to implement some aspect of this into pre-practice and pre-tournament games. So again, this is one way of, again, practicing mental game. But what I would suggest for everybody to do is, this is just one thing to try out. If it doesn't work for you, try other things, right? Like when I went back to Vancouver and practiced with Furious for a bit, their thing was exactly the same. They would do it right before they get into their active warm-up. But what they do is basically trust the players, do whatever you want. So some people tune in for that group, kind of like breathing, doing it together. Some people go off, do their own more active, like they're standing, they're kind of listening to music, doing whatever they want. Some people are lying down. Some people are eyes closed. It really depends on what works best for you. This is just one way that we can practice doing it as a team. And if you want to use it, great. If it doesn't work for you, try some other things. That is what I would encourage you. And again, passing those resources on to Albert and things like that. So has anybody heard of what kind of boxing is in terms of when you make a mistake? Does anyone know what I'm talking about? That's essentially it. It is where mindfulness is the passive practice where we're trying to get a repeated skill so that it happens automatically later when you can check in or be aware. Boxing is the more active aspect of it. So let's say you're on the field, you fuck up a throw. That is, okay, instead of letting my head dwell on this mistake and that causes me to make subsequent mistakes, it is just one active technique of, okay, I'm going to imagine I fucked up there. I'm going to take that thought, I'm going to put it in a box, I'm going to put it on the shelf, and I'm going to handle it later. So that when I'm in the game, when I have to perform, I don't need to think about it and let it affect my game. I know it's there for me to handle later, and I can come back afterwards and think about it. What can I do better? What happened? What was involved? What do I need to work on? So that's the active aspect, and now we're going to go into the passive mindfulness actual practice. With the practice that I usually do, again, it is 3 deep breaths, so I would encourage you to get in whatever position you feel most comfortable in. So if that is sitting, standing, lying down, do whatever you want. I'm going to do it standing just so people can hear me. And we're going to start with it with 3 deep breaths. So it'll be in through our nose and out through our mouth. And we're going to exhale for longer than the inhale. So it'll be in for 4 and out for 6. With these 3 deep breaths, just close your eyes when you feel ready at some point during those. So we'll go in through our nose and out through our mouth on my count. In and out. In and out. In and out. And keep with that tempo of breathing of in through the nose and out through the mouth. And again, with mindfulness being the focus on the present moment, I want you to focus your attention on your breath. So where you're feeling it in your body as you inhale and exhale, and where the tension is in your body. If you notice it in your shoulders or in your back, maybe you're feeling a little, again, hungover, not feeling the greatest, dehydrated. Notice those feelings, and as you inhale, on the exhale, let those thoughts out and focus your attention back on your breath. So again, what'll naturally happen with your mind is your brain wants to think about all the things that are going on around you, whether that is how you feel, maybe the assignments that you have coming up, the classes, maybe there are some texts, some assignments that you have to get to. And again, when you're playing on the field or when you're trying to get into a state of performance, those thoughts are not helpful for you at the task at hand. So this practice is directing that attention that naturally wants to go other places to where you want it. So again, as you're breathing in and out, just feel where you feel that tension in your body or those thoughts. Notice them and let them pass. I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute. And for this minute, I'm not going to be talking. And again, for this minute, I want you to, whenever you notice those thoughts enter your mind, notice them, let them pass, and refocus your attention on your breath. So we're going to start the minute now. That has been 1 minute, so we'll come out of this with, again, 3 deep breaths. So as we do this, feel free to open your eyes whenever you'd like. In through your nose, out through your mouth on my count. In and out. In and out. In and out. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Okay, cool. Hopefully that. No, I'll ask, like, how did that feel for people that maybe that was their first time? Yeah, I think again the whole purpose of that, whether it is the group practice that you do or the time on the sideline by yourself listening to music, whatever you want, the whole purpose is, we all have things externally that are on our mind, and that's normal. The hope with, I think, this practice and that what it helped me with is having a set thing that I know that, okay, I'm on the field now. This is the main thing that I'm choosing to direct my attention towards. So I'm going to treat it seriously. This is what I'm going to do to lock in as an individual so that as a team we can perform well. So yeah, that was the mindfulness practice. That was a little bit about boxing. I think now the plan is to get into warm up dynamic, and then we'll get started with day 2 of practice weekend.